Hello again, it's Jess or JashiiCorrin and welcome back for another video. In today's video I'm going to be showing you 5 different ideas for spreads for university students. You may remember a few weeks ago, back at the start of February, I released a similar video that was targeted at high school students. If you hadn't seen that one and you were interested, there's a link to it in the cards above. Before we get into today's spreads, I just want to let you guys know this is not anything super new. I'm not reinventing the wheel here. I've just collated 5 different spreads that really would be suited for people who are just starting out at university or want to get themselves organised at the start of the trimester. So without further ado, let's get into it. The first spread that I have here is a trimester overview, and this is based on the spread that I use for my teacher planning. You can see here in my term planner spread, I have each week of the term going down the page, and then across the page I have each day of that week. Each of these small boxes represents one of the school periods I have, and they're color-coded based on what that class is. In this one I can write down a small title for each of the lessons I'm teaching, just to keep myself on track with where I want to go in each course. If you wanted some more information on this one in particular, I also have a video for that one, a link to which is in the cards above as well. So to make the trimester overview spread I'm showing you today, I took inspiration from this one. So you can see we have a similar idea again. Each week of the trimester runs down the page, and then across the page we have each day of the week. In this one I've also included a space down the bottom for things that might not necessarily be due on any specific day, but you want to get done in that week. In the LT 1917, each of these boxes is 6 spaces across and 5 spaces down. So in theory there'd be enough room to write a little something for each of 5 different papers you might be taking. This one in particular could be used for due dates, for assignments and quizzes, or for something like setting personal deadlines on studying that you want to get done. To differentiate between each of your different papers, you could make it that specific lines in each box represent each of those papers, or you could color code it. Of course, you could also do both. So as I had in the teacher planning spread, you could have it that the first column in each of these boxes is a place for your color code, and then the remaining space is for writing down what it is you need to get done. Here I'm just filling in some examples of stuff you could put on a spread like this. So it could be things like your assignment due dates, when you have certain study groups, when you have labs for any courses that have them, or tutorials, and anything else that really has a due date. For that bottom row, as I've said, you can use it for things that don't have a specific due date, or you could use it for things that you're intending on doing on the weekend. Of course, the sizes of these boxes could be changed so that you only have 5 days running down the side, or a different number of weeks running along the top, depending on how much space you need to record the things you wanted to get done. The next page I have for you guys is a course overview, and this one's quite similar to the one that I set up in my video for high school students. Things that you might want to record on such a page are things like the times your lectures run, any times for labs or tutorials, who your lecturers are and their contact details, and then any of the assessments or assignments you might have. As part of this, I'd also recommend recording how much each of those is weighted, so what percentage they contribute to your overall grade for the course. Having these reference pages can be really helpful. I know that when I was at university, I spent a lot of time double checking the weighting for each of my assessments, just so that I could keep track of how I was progressing in each of my courses, and to be completely honest, see how badly I could do on my final exam and still pass. Having your lecturer's contact details on hand can be really important, especially if an issue comes up. Normally if you have an issue big enough to want to contact your lecturer, you're probably under enough stress already without having to also go and find how to get in contact with them. Having their details on a page like this can be really helpful in limiting your stress in that situation. The next idea I have for you guys should really come as no surprise, but it is a timetable for your classes. Typically when you get to university, the structure of your timetable is going to be quite a lot different to what you had at high school. For a lot of people, you'll have to consider yourself whether your courses are going to have clashes, rather than have your school do it for you. So having a nice overview of when your lectures are, and then when you can fit in your tutorials and labs and things like that, is really important for making sure you can attend all the things that you need to. Again, I'm just going in here and giving you guys a sample of how this one might look if you filled it out. I've based this on some of the courses I did in my first year of university. Once you place all of your lectures in and then the slots for your labs and tutorials and such, you can also plan any additional time for things like study groups, self-revision sessions, and things like part-time work, going to the gym, and other hobbies that you might have. You can see here I've also color-coded the lecture, tutorial, and lab time slots just to make them stand out. The next spread I have here is a budget. For a lot of people, going to university is the first time they've experienced a taste of financial independence, and having to be in charge of paying their own bills, housing, groceries, and everything else that comes with being an adult. Keeping track of your finances is really important for making sure that you stay on top of getting your bills paid, and also having enough money left over to buy not only the essentials, but also contribute to your savings and also any of the hobbies and other fun things you like to do. Personally, I prefer to keep track of my finances in Microsoft Excel, using a budgeting system that I had designed for myself. As part of this, I have two main sections. So I have my daily log, where I write down all of the things that I spend each day, broken down into different categories and subcategories. And the other section I have is the overview page, which shows me all of my spending in these different categories from month to month. This way I can keep really good track of the things I'm actually spending my money on, as well as just the amount I'm spending. For this spread, I've taken elements of that design and put it onto paper. So on the right hand side here, we just have a log for your spending, where you write down the date, any notes about what it was you were spending money on, the category that falls into, if you're tracking things in categories, and then the amount that you spend. This way at the end of the month you can see in which categories you are spending the most amounts of money, and also if there are any patterns in the days that you're actually spending money on. This left-hand page, on the other hand, is where you'd actually set budgeting limits for yourself and keep track of monthly expenses. So for the monthly expenses I've written down, these are things that I personally pay for monthly. So things like my power, my phone bill, internet, and also Netflix. You've got to allow some room for fun in your life. In terms of weekly expenses, I've listed some of these ideas down here. So things like your housing, so whether you pay rent or if you're in a boarding hostel that you have to pay money for, weekly groceries, and any other kind of weekly expenses. So this might be the money that's left over from your paycheck, or student allowance or student living costs. Here you can set yourself an amount or a limit for that category, and then over on the side here you can write down how much it actually cost. In the section down the bottom here you have space for your totals. So what was your total income for the month, and then also the total amount that you spent. Here I'm just writing down some completely made up numbers to show you how this spread could work. Something to note, I know that for me personally, my daily log of spending actually ends up being really long for the month. So having just one page dedicated to this might not actually be enough depending on your spending habits. I like to break my spending down into a lot of different categories and subcategories, so this list ends up being quite long. If this is something that you think would happen to you, you might want to allow yourself a little bit of extra space for it. Remember, it's all good and well to track your spending, but if you're not actually doing anything with that information, it's not really worthwhile. Tracking your spending, however, can be a really good way to identify areas that you're really spending way too much, and where you might be able to cut back so that you can save more. For the last idea I have for you guys, it is a study checklist. This one is again inspired by a spread that I do for myself, which is my teaching topic planner. For each of the different topics I have in my subjects, I like to write down a list of all of the lessons that are going to be part of that topic. And then along the top here I write out all of the things that I might need to do for each of those lessons. Once those things are completed, I can check them off, which means I can see how I'm progressing through preparing the materials for the teaching I need to do. This layout was based off that, in particular this section here, which is a checklist of the different things you might want to do to study for each of the lectures you have as part of your papers. Some ideas I have for things you might want to do would be highlighting any notes you have, making annotations on any of your course materials, doing the relevant readings, making yourself some lecture notes or summary notes, making flashcards, and then completing any revision questions. Along with this section, the space on the side could be used for a variety of different things. So it could be for completing past exam papers, or what I've put down here is doing the assignments, quizzes, and lab reports associated with this hypothetical course. So these 3 boxes here indicate completing the assessment, submitting the assessment, and then getting your feedback for the assessment. In this checklist section, of course, you might not want to do all of these things for every single one of your lectures. So as I did with my teaching topic planner, you might want to just fill those in with a different color. So for instance, if you weren't intending on making annotations for lecture 4, you might want to either grey that box out, cross it out, or do something that indicates that you made a conscious decision not to do that. So for instance here, a purple dot could indicate that those things have been done for that lecture. A grey dot could be that you made the conscious decision not to do those things. And then no dot could mean you haven't yet gotten to it. Just as a final flip through, we had the trimester overview, where you can write down the due dates for all of your different papers throughout the trimester. We had a course overview page, which can be used to list out lecture, lab, and tutorial times, any of your lecturers and their contact details, and the different assessment pieces you have for that paper. We have a weekly timetable, which shows you where all of your lectures, labs, and tutorials are, as well as any other slots that you wanted to include. We have a budget, which has a daily logging style system, as well as a breakdown of your spending in different categories for monthly expenses and weekly expenses. And last but not least, we have a study checklist. Thank you for watching. If you liked today's video, please do make sure to give it a big thumbs up. And if you hadn't already and wanted to, you can subscribe to my channel to see the videos I release every Thursday and Sunday. I'll be back again on Thursday with another weekly plan with me. And so until next time, bye!